Hey, you guys, this is the Couplings Fire podcast. Here's a couple of things you might need to know, or maybe you just forgot. I'm Taylor, a volunteer firefighter and also a firewife to my favorite firefighter. Join me as I talk anything and everything fire related. I don't claim to be an expert, I just love to talk fire, and everything I say is my own opinion. My goal? To inspire anyone listening to take the steps to bettering their department, however they can. Let's get on to the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Couplings Fire podcast. I'm your host, Taylor. Man, it's a gorgeous day today. And when I say gorgeous, I don't always mean sunny and 75 like everybody else says. It's like cloudy, overcast today. I think there's going to be a high of like 80, so like a little bit warmer. I would actually like something probably more like 70 and cloudy. That would be like my perfect day. Or maybe 65 and cloudy, something like that, like so I can wear like a long sleeve. So I'm not quite wearing a long sleeve just yet. But that brings up something interesting that happened this morning on Clubhouse. So apparently it's quote unquote job shirt season. Can't say that right. Hold on. Job shirt season. Okay. So I actually didn't quite know what that meant. Because I'm like, well, job shirts, those are just like any t-shirts, right? That are specific to the fire department or something, right? I'm like, that's what a job shirt is, right? Like, I didn't understand how there was a season. Well, apparently, job shirt, this is really hard to say this morning. Job shirt refers to like the 3/4 pull zip up jackets or whatever, right? Oh, okay. So we're getting onto this conversation. You'll just wait because this is interesting. So I call those jackets. Those aren't shirts. To me, a shirt is something you wear without something else under it. You have t-shirts, you have your long sleeves, you have your sweatshirts and stuff. Like all those are things you wouldn't wear like other shirts underneath of it usually, right? Those are your shirts. Then you have your jackets. And your jackets are like they can be just full zip up, they can be the 3/4 zip, they can be hoodies, something lighter, right, that you're kind of putting on. And then you get to your coats. And your coats are going to be anywhere from like your super duper heavy rain jackets, but those are still jackets to me. And then you have like your winter coats and stuff like that, right? Like those are coats. Those are like, you mean business. It's going to be cold or sucky outside. So that's how like my brain has always worked. Well, apparently I was told differently, or like the conversation in Clubhouse went where basically nobody else agreed with me. I'm like, wait, what? And it's really interesting because something I thought was so standard, because like I said, I call hoodies jackets. And I'm like, well, that's normal. And everyone's like, no, that's not. I'm like, what? Hoodies are jackets. Let me go grab a jacket. I might grab a hoodie. That makes sense to me. But it's interesting when you get in a group of people, and most of us are firefighters or we're in the fire-related field somehow, right? In this Clubhouse group, we're from all different parts of the country, right? You have some people from all West Coast, like severe West Coast, some people from severe East Coast, you have people all the way down in Texas, you have people in the northern states, Minnesota and things like that. They're all over. And you get us all in one group talking together, and something like that, I mean, it's not divisive in a bad way, right? But it's kind of divisive because it's just like everybody has their own thing that they say. So anyways, I don't think job shirts should be called shirts. I think they should be called job jackets. But whatever. I don't know. So I learned something new today, so that's interesting. No real big story there, just hopefully you followed all that, because looking back on it now, I think it was a little scatterbrained, or a lot scatterbrained actually. Man, I am talking like super fast this morning. I will try to slow it down for the rest of the episode. Whew. I got my blood going this morning, not in a good way. I went out for a walk. And when I go for walks, I go for walks. Like, I am intense and into it. Not quite the power walker, I'm not one of those people necessarily, but I walk pretty fast and I do pretty good. So nothing crazy, but I did last few days I've been doing 3.5 miles in an hour. And lots of hills, lots of big hills too. So that's been really nice. Just something easy in the morning to get my blood going, and it makes me nice and relaxed, and it helps with my overall mood here lately. And then in the afternoons, I'm trying to get in some other types of workouts too. So that's been really nice. I'm really excited to see how much better I feel. I mean, getting healthier, losing weight, and getting stronger is they're all great things, and I do want that to happen too. But at this point, I'm more looking for mental healing through all this. So, and I know in the past when I've exercised or when I go out for walks, I feel better overall. My day definitely goes better. So I'm really excited to see because I've been doing this for about 2 weeks now, and I've been upping how far I've been going each hour, which is nice that I'm making these strides. And I'm just hoping in the coming weeks I'm just all progressing that much better. I think I've said it before. I don't remember when, but you have to start somewhere when you start something like this, when you start a fitness journey or whatever. And I hate calling it that. It sounds so corny, so weird. But you have to start somewhere. And so this is where I'm starting. I'm starting with walks in the mornings. And if I have the time or have the energy or everything, then doing something more intense in the afternoon. So that's my goal. Watching what I'm eating a little bit better. Not a lot better, I will be honest, but it's baby steps. I still enjoy my Bud Light Limes. Anyways, so this episode's going to be kind of a mixture of three different things. So let's just go ahead and start. I don't know what I'm going to call this. I don't know what I'm going to call this, but we'll just get into it, and I'll figure out a name later, and you guys will find out what I called it because you've already clicked on the episode. So I was talking with Chris. For those of you who don't know, Chris is my husband. We started this podcast together, and he is actually currently in an academy for a career department, and so he's no longer on the podcast to make sure that he has time and basically as little commitments outside of that as possible to make sure he's doing the best he can for academy right now. So anyways, so I was talking with Chris, and we did an episode, I can't remember how many episodes ago, on is it your emergency? And this also kind of stemmed again from another conversation in Clubhouse. And I realized that I thought I got my point across what I meant. I thought that Chris understood my stance on it. And it turned out he didn't. Like he thought he knew, but it was completely different than what I was trying to get across. So I wanted to explain that better right now and see if I can maybe make it make more sense. So while in talking with Clubhouse on the subject again last week, it dawned on me that when people talk about is it your emergency or is it not your emergency, they're looking at the people who say it is your emergency are thinking it's all safety conscious and putting the firefighters first. And that they're basically wanting to keep the firefighters from getting injured and things, and that's the stance behind that. And that's not how I view it at all. So I was trying to figure out, well, why do I think about this differently than what other people think about? Especially where it seems like I agree more on the side of it is your emergency with their stances of things, but I firmly believe it's not your emergency. So why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? So I dug in a little bit into my brain, which is an interesting place to go, let me tell you. And it came down to my definition of emergency, what that word means to me. Because what that word means to someone is going to affect your decision making on that stance. First of all, it's a stupid discussion and argument to have anyways. Not really discussion. It's a stupid argument to have one way or the other. Doesn't matter if you're doing your job well and getting it done and doing it for the right reasons. But anyways, so my definition of emergency. When I think of an emergency is something that I have no control over. An emergency is something that I need help with. I am not prepared for it. I am not trained for it. I will be running around with my chicken with my head cut off because I don't know how to react to it because it's an emergency. It is something so far out of the spectrum, and I will not be able to handle it alone, and I don't necessarily know who to ask for help with it, and it's something too big for me to handle overall. That to me is what defines an emergency. So in my brain, when I say it's not your emergency, and that's a stance I take, it's because I believe that you as a first responder should be trained to handle these things that are emergencies for other people. Yes, they are emergencies for the homeowner. Something they don't know how to deal with, something they've never trained for, something that's way over their spectrum. They're going to be freaking out. It is their emergency. But you coming to respond to that, you should be trained for it. You should know how to handle it. You should have A, B, C, D, and E different plans in case things go haywire, you know. You should be very calm, cool, and collected while you're doing it. You should be the authority figure in that, and it shouldn't be anything surprising to you. If it's your emergency in my brain, you're going to be reacting to that house fire the same way the homeowner is, and you shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to call for someone else to come take care of the problem because you're the one coming to take care of the problem. So I'm hoping that makes more sense to you guys. And if it still doesn't, let me know and I'll see if I can't explain it better. So that's why I take the stance I do, is because of my version, my definition of emergency in my brain, right? What I think of when I think of emergency. So I again fully, wholeheartedly believe that first responders need to take risks, and we need to be there for the citizens that we protect, and we need to be on top of our game. We need to train. Of course you're not going to go out there and purposefully do something to injure yourself or to make situations worse when it doesn't need to be. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're taking a risk for the right reasons, that's perfectly fine. You know, it all comes down to situational at that point. And I mean, we can talk forever about risk a little, save a little, risk a little to save a little, risk a lot to save a lot. But I listened to a podcast with David Mellon the other day, you know, and I think it was with Brandon Fletcher, if I remember right. And they were saying, you know, what's a little, you know, and what's a lot. Maybe it wasn't Brandon Fletcher. It might have been the second to last one he just did. Oh, I can't remember his name. Go look it up. Go look up those. I mean, I love all those podcast episodes he puts out in videos and stuff. I can't remember who it was that said that in that one. Anyways, yeah, so that's why I think the way I do. That's why I take the stance the way I do. And I'm starting to realize, well, and I knew this for a long time, that people don't always think like I do, or more accurately, I don't think the same way as a lot of people, and especially the same way as a lot of firefighters. And I don't know why. Maybe I don't know, it's just I have such a weird personality when it comes to the fire service. It seems like I come up with different questions than other people do, and I think of things very differently, which makes it actually very hard to have good conversations with people because I have to explain myself more. and to get them to understand that I'm saying the exact same thing, but just in a different way. Um, did I finish my thought? I think I finished my thought. So over recapping this last little bit, overall, I don't think it's your emergency, but that is based on my definition of emergency. And my definition of emergency in my brain is something that you personally are not trained for, cannot handle, will be freaking out over, and you need somebody to help you to come take care of the problem. And you should be the one who is coming to take care of the problem. So, no, it is not your emergency. That is why I think the way I do. And hopefully that is more clear. So after I took the time to explain it that way to Chris, he completely understood it. And he's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, you know? But you really should be on the other end of the thing then, you know? So it's like, well, I don't know. I'm weird. I don't fit in anyway. So why would I start now? All right. Next thought on my brain. Today's gonna be a day, at least for these first two things, of explaining, maybe more reiterating and explaining in a better detail what I mean for things. Um, so I put out that anxiety episode, Anxiety in the Fire Service, a couple episodes ago. And I I don't know if I did a good job explaining one point of it. And I was talking to a friend this week. They were a lot like other people when it comes to thinking about anxiety. If you never deal with it, if you haven't dealt with it and you haven't lived with it for a while, it is hard to know some things about it. And to know what is and what isn't part of anxiety. So I think the biggest misconception for anxiety is that if you have anxiety, you are always upset or in a bad mood. And that's just not the case. I'm usually 90% of the time a really positive person. At least I try to be. I like to be happy, I like to be positive, but I have severe anxiety when it comes to everyday situations. Just a general, what do they call it? General anxiety disorder or something? I don't know. I should know, but I've been dealing with this for about 5 years now, which is crazy to say. 5 years. Um, but it doesn't make you upset. It doesn't make you mad. It doesn't make you sad. Anxiety is just your brain going haywire, basically, all the time. But it doesn't mean you're in a bad mood. I'm happy a lot of the time. And even when I'm happy, I have anxiety. Yeah, it makes me more worried, but I'm still happy. So anxiety does not equal sadness. Um, and I think a lot of people just assume that it does. Because how can you be happy if you are anxious all the time? And I wish there was a better way to explain that. And there's really not a good way to explain it. There really isn't. That's what makes anxiety and depression so different, because anxiety is more of you overthink all the time, you go to drastic situations in your brain and stuff, and yeah, a lot of times you are thinking negatively on things when it comes to when you spiral, but you don't always spiral all the time. Most of the time you just overthink things. Ooh, you guys hear that? Thunder, hear the thunder, bum, bum, bum. Lightning and the thunder. Okay. Uh, not no lightning yet. That's exciting. Well, I was gonna go sit outside after this. I don't know if that's happening anymore because we don't have a covered porch. So I miss having a covered porch. That was so nice. Um. Anyways, so even if you are going overboard with your anxiety at different points, does not mean you are upset. And depression, on the other hand, is you feel numb, you really don't feel like doing anything. It it's negative thoughts all the time, and you do feel sad a lot, or worthless or things like that. So they are two completely different things that oftentimes do go hand in hand together really easily. It is really easy to get one if you have the other, and vice versa. And some people do develop them at the same time. But yeah, just because you're not sad doesn't mean you don't have anxiety, because sadness does not equal anxiety and vice versa. So, I bet most people, when they first meet me, or just business clients I have or anything, they don't know I have anxiety. I don't let it show. I'm happy a lot. And overall, I am happy on the inside too, you know? So you can hide it pretty well in the first place, and it doesn't affect your mood like that most of the time. So that was a pretty short one, and kind of maybe rambling as well. I wish there was a better way to not ramble through some of these. uh because I don't want you guys to get lost in my answers to this, and in the discussions to it. So maybe we'll do better with this next one. So that is all for the kind of recap and re-explaining of some things on some other topics. So now I want to go to something a little interesting, a little differently. So Chris and I will eventually have kids. We're not there yet, but eventually we'll have kids. And one thing we've been thinking about for years, is we're both in the fire department. We're gonna have kids. What are we gonna do? How's this gonna work? Who's going to take the kid when a call comes out? Because can't just leave the kid at home, by themselves or things. Um, and we knew that our future kids would be growing up in the fire service kind of without a choice, because we really didn't have family in the area, right? And the calls, especially on a volunteer department, happen out of nowhere. You can't plan for them. So they're going to have to be ingrained into this. And if we wanted to both be at practices or trainings or meetings, what are we going to do? So we started thinking, and I started doing a lot of research on what other volunteer departments were doing across the country. And we started kind of thinking on our own. And I kind of came up with a list of different things that you can do to make your volunteer department more family oriented. And again, this is not tried and true. I have not been on a department that have done these things, but these are what, like I said, what we've read that other departments have done, and kind of things we thought about, that would make it easier. And even if you don't have both spouses, right, both of you on the department, I still think making a fire department family oriented is very important in the volunteer world. It is in volunteer and career, but in the volunteer world, that is how you influence the next generation. That is definitely how you influence the next generation to become volunteer firefighters. And that is also how you keep your firefighters and their families happy, is by including them. If they feel included, they're not necessarily, it still happens, I understand, but they're not necessarily going to be upset when their firefighter leaves in the middle of supper for a call, or they always have to sacrifice things for fire calls. So, let's dig in. All right, so the first one I have, doing truck checks with your family. So, I know of several departments out there where they have a checklist for each truck that they have to go over. And it can either be separated out, like if you're on a department that actually does shift work, right, as a volunteer. Maybe at the beginning of your shift, you go through a full truck check, or maybe if you're just on a different volunteer department that you get paged out from your home, then you might just have to do it every week for a month, or maybe you get 1 week every few weeks that you have to go do it, or however it works, right? So bring in your family to do it with you, or one kid or something each time. As long as they are not running rampant, that they could actually either cause harm to themselves or really ruin something in the station, bring your family along. Why not? Let them see around the trucks. Have them help you check your trucks and make sure everything's there and everything. Teach them about little things. It's so much fun. I know, and it's a little different because we didn't have a kid, but we had a dog. He was very well trained, And we actually would bring them to the station to check trucks with Chris and I. We'd usually have truck checks on the same day or on the same schedule, and we'd have two different trucks. And so we'd bring the dog in, and usually there was not many people, if nobody there, so they didn't care. And since he wasn't going to go to the bathroom on the inside or anything, like I said, he was very well trained. He didn't get into stuff, so we brought him with us, and we were able to hang out with our dog and kind of play with him while we were checking our trucks and doing our job. And you could do the same thing with the kid. You could have the kid hold the truck checklist and list off things that you need to find. You could even, as the kid gets older, switch it off and let the kid find the things on the truck for you while you list it off. That way you can kind of teach them what things are and what they do. Like it's so much fun to do that with somebody else, and it stops being boring and it gets them to have part of ownership with that department as well. And I keep saying kid, but heck, bring a spouse in. When you're done with everything, put your spouse in an air pack and have them try it for a little bit and see what it's like. Fill it up afterwards. Again, you're not causing any harm by bringing your family to the station. And the more that your family learns about the equipment that you're using and how trained you actually are, the safer that they're going to feel you are when you go out to a call, and the better they're going to feel when they're at home. It's a win-win-win. So the next kind of idea is babysitting while you're on the calls. And this was such an interesting idea I read out there, where basically, I mean, if you had your kid or whatever, you bring them to the station, and when the tones went out, and there would always be either an older kid, like a teenager or someone, or one of the spouses would come in, just kind of automatically, and somebody would be there to watch the kids. And it'd just be kind of I don't know, just kind of an unsaid service that they would offer for that. You could also do it if you have maybe older firemen who don't do a lot on the actual calls. Depending on what the call is, if they could sacrifice a little bit of time and hanging back to watch the kids until someone else showed up, that's another option that you can do. Ooh. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's starting to rain pretty hard. So forgive the nature noise. I thought the nature noises would be done as soon as I started moving inside again, but apparently not. So yeah, so babysitting at the calls, and this would have freed up, if Chris and I both had the kid, a kid and stuff, and we wouldn't have to choose who stayed home. We could bring the kid to the station, they could get babysat, we knew they were well taken care of, and they'd be fine. And if let's say I just had the kid on my own while Chris was out doing something else, let's say the kid's more like elementary school at this point, but I, was close enough where I was basically available to go to this call, but I otherwise wouldn't be able to because I had the child with me. I could take the kid with me and have him at the station. And kids love that, by the way. They love being at the station, even if they're just in your meeting room or whatever, hanging out, basement, whatever, wherever kind of space you have for them. I would recommend, if you're going to do this, to have an actual space that's ready for kids in case that does happen. But I don't know, it seems to free up a whole lot of what ifs for the parents on your department. And if you can convince somebody then to be able to come on a call that they wouldn't be able to otherwise, isn't that better? Because how many parents stay back with kids when there's a call out on a volunteer department? Let's say 5. There's 5 people that could have showed up if you would have something like this in place. And 5 people on a decent sized fire is a big deal. 5 people even on a small fire is a big deal, depending on what you're going up against, and depending on how fast you get there, and depending on how many people you'd have show up anyways. Sorry, I'm talking fast again. What if you had maybe 3 people show up, but there could have been 5 others that showed up for this call had they been able to do this? So you could have had 8. You could have had 2 trucks rolling. But instead you only have 1, and it's understaffed. So just an idea, something to throw out there. Talk to your membership, see if it's something they want to implement or try out. You can always put something in place. And if it doesn't work, you can always switch back. We need to normalize that more. We need to normalize switching back if something doesn't work. It doesn't always have to stay the same. So, why not try something new? And if you don't have something set up at your station, or if it's not going to work or whatever, however it may be, still normalize it enough where, let's say I had a kid with me, I can still bring the kid with me to the station and we can run the radio in the radio room for everything. Maybe we could work on helping to refill the tanker when it comes back for more water. Maybe we can just do other things around the station with the kid there. Yeah, you don't have one more person on scene, but you have someone back at the station in your corner if you need something. So that's another option. So talking about having a space specifically for kids, right? When I was saying if you had those calls, you can make sure that they have a space for them already that's ready. It doesn't have to be just for them. Like I said, you can use a meeting room or something, but make sure that it doesn't have a lot of things lying around that it's going to be bad if they get into. You don't want like a bunch of tools on the ground in the room that they're in. You don't want basically something that you don't want kids being around in. But have like some sort of entertainment there for them too. Just kind of always set up, have like a bookshelf or a little cubby that has maybe some board games in it. Maybe it has cards, maybe it has coloring books and crayons and stuff. If you want to find an old game system that somebody has lying around and throw the game system in that, and kids know how to set stuff up. So don't worry, it doesn't have to be set up right away. They can set it up while you're gone. So have a game system sitting there that they can hook up and play games on while you're gone and while they're hanging out there. You just kind of have a space that is very inviting for kids to hang out and play in and enjoy themselves while you're gone on the call. The next one, this one kind of goes off of kids more to just the general family aspect, and actually this one kind of goes more to just the spouses. So implement a yoga night. And I know, you're like, wait, what? What? Why yoga? We're firefighters. We don't like yoga. You know what? Yoga's awesome. I will admit that now. I used to be kind of the naysayer too. I'm like, I'm never going to do yoga. And I tried it, and it's freaking awesome. And you know what? Yoga is so good for stretching your muscles out, getting more flexible, and in some cases, depending on what moves you do, they help refine your core and your stability. Overall, it's good for you. And as firefighters, we should strive to be more flexible. We should strive for our core to be better and to have better balance and to be more in tune with our bodies and what they're telling us and what we can and can't do, and learning how to push those limits. And that doesn't just come from doing weights or running or other things. You need to do those stretching sessions and whatnot to be able to further your body in those areas. It's going to make everything easier. So I encourage firefighters to also attend yoga nights, but if nothing else, have it for the spouses that like to do the yoga stuff. It doesn't just have to be yoga, right? It could be other sorts of things. Like I do refit, which is basically like a jazzercise Zumba type thing, right? Have something like that every night or every other night or every other week, not every other night, Did I say every night in the first one? Every week, maybe every other week, something like that. Have those kind of nights where other family members are encouraged to come into the station and work out together or do these types of things together. And it's going to make you feel closer with everybody, not just on your crew, but the families as well. And when the families are more comfortable with you, they're going to feel better about their firefighter being there. They're going to know that you have their backs. Oh, another one. Okay, so you have water fights at practice. And this is something my old department did. We really implemented the family aspect of it the last couple of years, where we would actually have the families come in and watch us do the water fights. And then we would actually have the kids come up and try it too. And it was so much fun. Everyone loved it. It was just a big party. We still got some work in, some hose handling and nozzle handling and everything with it. But it was a lot of fun. And it was something for the families to come out and watch us and see us doing our jobs, albeit a fun way. But they got to see it, and then there was water everywhere, so we had kids in swimsuits and stuff everywhere, and it was just a good end of summer kind of break, and it put everyone in a good mood. And something like that you can also do, serve some foods or something with it too, and make it a big old party there for a practice night or something. That'd be fun. Something Chris and I would do quite a bit is we would go to the station. We were in a small town. We didn't have much to do. Okay, just gonna be very honest with that there. So we would go to the station, and we do pizza nights. So we would grab a Casey's pizza, and Casey's is a it is a pizza place that happens to sell gas, basically. It's a gas station, but it's really famous for their pizza, and they have really good pizza. So we would get a Casey's pizza, and we would go to the station and grab some pop. We'd go upstairs and we'd hang out. Sometimes we'd watch either a movie or a TV show or something. Sometimes we'd actually bring card games. We'd play. I mean, I beat his butt in cribbage so many times. Just hang out. I've known other people who have gone and they would take schoolwork or other things to go study. Or if they were taking an online class or something, they would take it up there, They would use it for other things other than just the normal fire station things. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it makes everyone more comfortable just with being around the station. And then if you happen to be there at the same time somebody else is there doing something, the conversations that happen when you just bump into somebody at the station is so good. You get on to different topics, maybe you get some stuff done too. Overall, it's just making it a place that people want to be. And you should want to make your volunteer department a place where people want to be. Because the more people hang out there, the more they're going to be putting in the work for that department as well. And the more comfortable they're going to be with putting more of the department into more of their lives. All right, so when we talked a couple points ago about the water fights, this is kind of another spin on that. So it's just a general family night. Wow, can't talk. Maybe there's a family guy. Okay. Maybe it's just a family night. So this could be anything. Maybe you just do a bunch of board games out in your whatever meeting room or wherever you're at, basement, or if you have just a different room, or maybe you set up tables in the apparatus bay, right? And you do stuff out there. I don't know, whatever. But you could do board games. You could set up basketball hoops. You could do a grill out. You could do maybe you invite the family to be in on a low risk kind of practice or something. Maybe you have fun and you take the spouses in on doing some hose handling, right? That'd be so much fun. That would be so much fun. Maybe you set up a mini obstacle course for the kids to do or something, right? Like almost a Scott Firefighter challenge, but make it for kids. There's so many different ideas you could do for a family night, and it's endless. Kind of piggybacking off of that one, have specifically a movie night. And this is something I was actually implementing in my last department, and then COVID ruined it. The first one I had planned, there was a snowstorm. Okay, so I postponed it like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. And then COVID hit. And obviously, we didn't want a bunch of people in a small enclosed space, right? So that kind of bit the dust. But I mean, now on whatever department I go on, or if you guys are listening to this or whatever, implement a movie night. And basically, what I would do, the first one I was going to start with Planes, Fire, and Rescue. If you guys couldn't tell, I like that movie. But I would start out with something like that. Something that was fire related, but still for kids. And this is all geared towards kids for the movie night. And you just have them bring in like maybe a pillow and blankets or like whatever they want to bring in. Everyone, it's a party on the floor. right? And everyone chills and watches a movie. And then, of course, you're going to have kids who are maybe not going to want to sit and watch the movie or something. So you have either some activity books, coloring books, or something kind of quiet for them to do in the back of the room so they don't distract everyone else from the movie. So you kind of have that option available. Then we were going to go out and buy 2 liters of pop and have some pop and cups there so the kids could have some pop. And then we would do, we had a local movie theater. So the plan was to go buy a big bag of popcorn and actually have movie theater popcorn for these kids. And my original thought was doing this like once a month. Once a month, pick a Friday or Saturday, and whoever can make it, that's awesome. If you couldn't, see you next time, and come in. And it was just for first responder relatives, basically. So kids, grandkids, niece, nephews, whatever, just those people would come in. Basically, overall, it's getting us a chance to learn our first responders better, their lives better. We get to know their kids, we get to know their names, we get to have a peek into everyone else's lives than our own. And then in turn, you're making these kids grow up around this awesome environment of the fire station. And hopefully it impacts them later in life where they want to do this for their family and they want to volunteer for their community. That is a big, if I haven't said it enough, that is a big reason why you do this kind of stuff. Why you make a family-oriented fire department. You do it for 3 reasons. I think 3 reasons. 3 sounds like a good, nice number. 3 is always the magic number for everything, right? It's either 3 or 5. But 3 reasons. You're going to do it for the kids to be able to see this kind of thing and to be able to hopefully kind of put subtly in their brains that they should do this later in life, that they want to help their community. You're going to do, secondly, for the spouses and for the families in general, because they're going to just be in a better mood. If you're doing this, they're going to feel more a part of it. It's not going to be something that's just their other spouse does, and to get away from the house. It's going to be something that they all have a stake in together. And third, because the family's happy, your first responder is going to be so much happier because he's not always in arguments and fights. Sorry, he, she, whatever. They are not always in arguments and fights with the other spouse about being gone too much or not coming home right away or blah, 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 whatever it is. Those are the 3 reasons you do stuff like this. And overall, it's going to help your department run smoother, better, and you're going to have happier people. And happier people get more stuff done and want to be there and want to work, and your department is going to thrive from that. Sorry, sometimes I get intense. My goodness. Well, this is going to be a shorter episode. I don't really have anything else to kind of tag on the end of this. So those are just some ideas that I had, for making your volunteer department more family oriented. I kind of gave you the 3 reasons I thought that's really important. And so some ways that, like I said, none of these have been tested and tried and true. These were just ideas that I had found on the internet, just some things that I looked up on my own that I thought would be really fun to implement and good overall. So stay tuned till next week. I have another guest on the podcast. It'll be my friend David Stender, so be on the lookout for that next Friday. New episodes come out every Friday. If you have something you would like to share and would like to be on the podcast, please let me know. We'll work something out. I love having guests on nowadays. I do 3 different types of episodes at the moment. Right now, I am doing kind of my own individual episodes, like this one was today. I just kind of talk about whatever I feel like. Sometimes I have one big topic for the whole thing, and sometimes it's like today where I have a few. They kind of go together. Another one I do is just a straight interview podcast. And the third type that I do is what I call a co-host. And that is where if you have a subject you want to talk about, or if I have a subject I want to talk about, basically we're going to take on being co-hosts together for an episode and have a great discussion on that topic. So please reach out if you'd like to be on the podcast. You can find me, I keep saying us in my brain. You can find me at Couplings Fire Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. My email is couplingsfirepodcast@gmail.com. And you can always find me on Clubhouse, which is at Couplings Pod on there. All right. I guess I'll sign this out. I really need to find a good sign off. I need something unique. If you guys have something that you can think of, let me know. Because I'm drawing a complete blank right now. Complete blank right now. So, whatever time you're listening to this, day, morning, evening, whatever, we hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next episode. See ya. Thanks for coming by and listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram @CouplingsFirePodcast. See you next time, everybody.